Hi everybody and welcome back to Inclusion Differently with me, Jackie Handy. Another episode begins. Let's get started. Hey, welcome back, and it's great to see you again. This week, rather than a live broadcast, this is a recording because I'm actually off work. I've decided to take a few days off. I've really had very little break this year because of the strange year that we've been in. But tomorrow is my birthday, and on Wednesday, my dad has his birthday. So we celebrate quite a few family birthdays this week in November. So I thought it was a good excuse for a couple of days off. But I didn't want to let you down because I know some people have been following along with this series of Inclusion Differently, my short videos to accompany the questions and the reflections in my book. You can see it on the shelf behind me. It's called The Little Book of Belonging. It's your weekly guide to inclusive habits. And I know that many of you watching will already have your copy. So if you have, thank you so much for your support and I hope you're enjoying it. For those that haven't and would still like a copy, because it's a desk book, which is wire bound, you can't buy it from Amazon. You can only buy it exclusively via my website. So head over to jackiehandy.com/shop and you'll be able to find your copy. And of course, as you'd expect, I ship globally. Now, over the last few weeks, we've been talking about understanding the person to the left and the right of us, their values, their belief systems, and creating an environment founded upon psychological safety that gives them permission really to open up. And we've talked a lot about positive intention. If you have missed a few of these videos and you'd like to catch up, because this I believe is episode 4 now, so if you've missed any, you can head over to my YouTube channel, just search for Jackie Handy on YouTube and you'll find it. Hit the subscribe button and then you'll be able to watch all of those back. I've got a playlist dedicated to the series. Alternatively, of course, scroll through the feed on my social media and you'll find them. But today we're moving on to the next reflection and the next question. And this is a really important question to consider, one that probably we think about a lot. And what you'll notice that the questions and reflections from this book focus on a number of key behaviours, important behaviours, but familiar ones. And this is no different. Today we're talking about how can I become a better listener? Well, isn't that the $1 million question? We all like to think, don't we, that we are great listeners. But actually, are we hearing or are we listening? Because there's a fundamental difference. The problem, of course, you see, and this is the reflection that accompanies the question in the book for this particular question, and that is this, is that the biggest communication problem is that we don't listen to understand, we listen to reply. And if you've been watching this series, you'll know the importance of really seeking to understand when we're engaging with people on the topic of diversity, inclusion, and of course, that all important belonging. Very often we are hearing what has been said, but are we truly listening? And there is a fundamental difference, but it's also quite subtle. So you might hear the words, but are you really processing them? And if you've ever been in conversation with somebody and as you're talking, you can almost see them just desperate to get in with their next statement or the next question. And what that tells you is that the person couldn't possibly have been listening deeply and actively because they're so busy compiling the next statement or question that they want to say or ask that they couldn't possibly be truly listening to you. So think about that, and think about, importantly, how it can feel when you're on the receiving end of something like that. And if you're talking with somebody and getting them to open up to you about their identity, deep-seated values and belief systems, and of course their needs and wants from you or from the organisation that you work within, then it's vitally important that you give people your ears deeply and sincerely. So I've got 2 very simple tips that will help you start taking these small steps to becoming a better listener. Are you ready? They're super simple, but here we go. The first is switch off. And what I mean by that is switch off anything that could possibly distract you. And we know, don't we, that for many of us, communication is being done like this. It is virtual or possibly over the phone. But I think as much as possible, if you're having heart-centered conversations around identity and inclusion, then ideally you should be doing that as much a face-to-face basis as we possibly can right now. So switch off your phone, switch off your emails, anything that could possibly distract you. Close the door to your office, try and keep the dog quiet. We know we're living in the real world and we have dogs and pets and family members that might create distractions. Somebody comes to the door in the middle of something. That can always happen. But as much as you can control, do try and control the distractions. Because then you can move on to the second piece, which is switch on. And that's switch yourself on wholly and centeredly. So really think about the person that is in front of you, or perhaps on the end of that telephone. Give them your all, your heart, your head, and of course your ears. And really think about being present in the conversation, because that's going to be so important. And you know, even if you're thinking that what they're saying to you is not that important in the grand scheme of things, trust me, it could be very important to them, and that is what really matters. So switch off and switch on would be my 2 simple tips in order to help you start taking steps to become a better listener. Because the thing is, what happens is when we hear something that we like, that resonates with us, that lifts us, it's really easy then to internalize that, listen, and truly understand the meaning behind what we've heard. And sometimes in conversations relating to diversity and inclusion, differing belief systems, differing values, different identities, it can be challenging for us to take in. So we need to try even harder. So that switch off, switch on technique could really help you start taking just those first steps in becoming a better listener. And you know, as it's my birthday, I wanted to share something with you that relates to this theme, really. And of course, you'll be familiar, I'm sure, with the song Happy Birthday. We hear it over and over and over, and we sing it, don't we, to friends and family members. And of course, across the world, there are so many different versions of Happy Birthday, maybe a different tune, or it may be slightly different lyrics. And I wanted to share with you because I love the song Happy Birthday. It's always a nice uplifting song, but I heard a version of this song which was so uplifting, and it was the last time I travelled. Do you remember the days where we could travel? I went to Namibia in February this year to give a talk, and while I was there, one of my great friends, Betty Ann Howard, I'll tag her in this, it was her birthday while we were there. And we were out at a restaurant, you remember those days as well, where we could go out freely and socialise with our friends. And the waiting staff came up at the end of the meal and they sung a beautiful rendition of Happy Birthday. And they did it in the beautiful harmony as well. And it was so uplifting. And, you know, I'm putting myself out here because I loved it so much that I remembered it. I internalized it, and now I'm going to share it with you. So close your ears, because I'm no Pavarotti, but here we go. It goes like this. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. May the light of the Lord shine on you. Happy birthday to you. And then they repeat it a couple of times, and then of course it's followed by the whoops and the claps and the cheers as well. Isn't that just a lovely version of the song? And you know, I think that really demonstrates the point about listening. So I didn't just hear that song that day, but I liked it, and therefore I really listened intently, so much so that I can repeat it back to you today. Maybe not quite as harmoniously as the waiting staff in that restaurant. So be reminded of that. These are small steps that we're talking about in this series, but the small steps can make a real difference, not only to the way in which you communicate wholeheartedly, but also, of course, to the recipient of your communication. You are always communicating something, and as listeners, we are communicating just as much as when we speak. So challenge yourself. Challenge yourself to take one small step towards becoming a better listener. Switch off and then switch on, and be totally present to the person in front of you. You never know, it might make a huge difference to their life and the quality of your relationship. So I'm going to leave you to it now for today. Thank you once again for watching. I hope your ears aren't sore, and I'll see you again next time on Inclusion Differently. Bye for now.